Sorry. That's my yeah.
Nice look, JD. The 80s.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. As we get started today, if you could reach into your pockets of purses and take out your cell phones and maybe turn them on silent or mute them, just so we can have an uninterrupted time here today. It's a pleasure to be with you. Many of you I know were here just in April for Craig's service, and I had the privilege also of being here for that. And it's so great that you turned out to the aisle. I will admit I came early to be able to see the pictures and kind of hear the vibe. You guys are a little rowdy, but that's great because I think the spirit of this room is exactly what the family was looking for today. Life is just too short to go through a second loss in this short of a period of time. And as you know, it doesn't matter if you expect it, how old or young a person is, loss is hard. It just is. A very wise person once said, it's okay to miss them. It's okay to say their name often. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to breathe deeply. It's okay to smile when you think of them. It's okay to have days when you can function, and it's going to be okay to have days when you just can't. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be thankful. It's okay to remember. It's okay to hope. It's okay to be honest about how you're feeling. It's going to be okay. And if you've been through loss, Deb and I were talking here a little bit ago, there's just no script. Everybody feels differently, everybody reacts differently, and the best thing you can do as a family and friends is just to give each other the space to grieve in whatever way that you need to grieve. If you were here for Craig's service, you know that at every service I do, I talk about something I call holy collisions. And what I mean by that is, if you think over the course of our lives, there are certain times when we're lucky enough to run into the exact right person at the exact right time of our lives for the exact right reason that we were supposed to run into that person. You might be sitting next to one of your holy collisions right now. You think back to that first moment you met, you know, who talked to who first, and what was it you saw in each other that pushed through all the layers of friendship and relationship to become whatever the significant relationship is here today. And if you think about it, we can set aside all our accomplishments, everything that we've ever owned, and what life really boils down to are those holy collision, significant relationships that are represented in this room right now. And whenever I have the privilege of doing a service like this, I don't know most of you, but I consider this group of people sitting here on this Sunday afternoon, we're our own version of a holy collision. You can't explain why this group of human beings would ever be at the same place at the same time. And let's be honest, we get back into our cars here in a little bit. We all have things we're worried about. We have decisions we're trying to make. There's a lot of stuff in this world to think about and worry about right now. And all those things are going to be waiting for us when we get back in our cars. So my hope and my prayer is that by taking a few minutes out to listen to Marilyn's story, that by the time we get back in our cars, we're going to have a little bit different energy and a little bit different appreciation for this thing we call life. And I think that's entirely possible to do that. You know, 94 years to me is almost impossible to wrap my head around. That's a long time. You know, they call that generation the greatest generation. I don't think that is 1 ounce of an exaggeration. There was a sense of loyalty and patriotism and value and honor in that generation that simply does not exist to that level today at all. I don't think any 100-year span will ever see as much like macro change as that 100-year span has seen. You think about everything. And I know today we can wake up and watch the news and think, oh, there's never been a time as bad as what we're living through right now. And I would have to think that somebody in Marilyn's generation would just laugh at that. But they saw a lot of stuff. So for the next couple of months, I'm going to get out of the way. Patty has prepared something, and she's going to come up and share. And then after she's done, I'm going to listen to another song. Patty.
What a life. Marilyn Norris lived 94 years, and she made the most of them. She was raised by her tiny spitfire of a mother, Mabel McClarty, who taught her how to be a strong, self-sufficient woman. Our grandfather, John McClarty, died when Mom was only 11 years old, leaving Mabel a 38-year-old widow with 3 children. Mabel had grown up in an orphanage, so she was no stranger to hardship. Strong, stubborn, independent, capable, kind, and loving. All words that describe both Mabel and her daughter Marilyn. Those of you who aren't aware, Dad also had a sister named Marilyn, so he gave Mom the nickname of Mert. From that time on, she was known as Mert or Mertie by all of her high school friends and her family. So you hear us referring to her as Mert. Junior was her high school sweetheart and was both a neighbor and her family's paper boy. One of Dad's favorite jokes was that Mabel didn't pay her bill and he gave him Marilyn instead. Mom and Dad married in 1951 and had quite a life together. She was along for the ride when Dad's Dayton Flyers basketball team surged into the national spotlight for the first time with 2 trips to the NIT Finals at Madison Square Garden. They raised 4 children together, first in a little house on Norris Drive, then building their forever home in the Oak Creek neighborhood in 1968. She supported his campaigns for clerk reports, walking the neighborhoods, making signs in the backyard, writing in parades, and attending countless political functions. Dad recognized Mom's years of loyal devotion as only he would in his own unique style When he was inducted into Fairmont's Athletic Hall of Fame in 2000, he proudly announced to everyone that he had rewarded her years of love and devotion by buying her a riding lawnmower. See, Mom did all the jobs around the house. Somehow Dad did not inherit Grandma Norris's handyman qualities. Yard work, Mom did it. House cleaning, Mom. Blacktop the driveway. You guessed it, Mom. Stand on a chair to change a light bulb. You know the answer. But ever since 2000, Mom no longer had to use a push mower to cut grass. Mom was also inducted into the Fairmont Athletic Hall of Fame. She was an outstanding athlete and competitor, and she excelled at everything. She followed her older sister Jean into tennis, and it became her passion. Tennis truly is a sport for a lifetime, and Mom played competitively well into her 70s, and still took weekly lessons in her 80s. If her body hadn't let her down, she never would have given it up. Of course, due to that awful disease of Alzheimer's, she often still thought she'd just played a tennis match or feel like it. While Dad was the better-known athlete in the family due to the high profile of the Dayton Flyers, it's quite possible that Mom was truly the most talented athlete in the family. When we cleared out their home after she moved to Carlisle House, I found a newspaper article from shortly after they had married that referred to her as the lesser-known but better Norris athlete. I mean, if it's in the newspaper, it has to be true, right? In the course of gathering photos this week, it was hard to find shots of Mom from when we were growing up. She was busy taking the pictures, so it was never in them. She was a stay-at-home mom until I was in the 6th grade, and she did it all. Leading Girl Scout troops, teaching Sunday school, carpooling to practices and games, music lessons, scout meetings, choir practice, and attending all the games and meets. We dragons football, Little League baseball, basketball, soccer, field hockey, swimming, diving, all through our junior high years and our junior high and high school years, and all the summer leagues. She was always busy and she was always there. Even when we played our college sports, she was always in the stands. She came to almost every single one of my field hockey games in Miami, all 4 years, home and away. And she always had homemade chocolate chip cookies for the team. Mom loved a trip to the beach. In the early years, there were family trips to Myrtle Beach, along with her longtime friends, Jack and Joe Doolin. Then I came along and got planned for no more family vacation. I guess 4 kids made it a little bit expensive to travel, and with all the activities, I'm sure it's hard to find the time. After the kids were grown, they would frequently travel to Florida to visit their siblings' families, Ed and Sharon, Don and Bobby, and Jean and Joe. It was their favorite thing to do. Being the youngest and the only one still at home, I got to go with them a lot of the time. They had the best times together. Golfing, dining out at Fat Willie's Fish Camp, having cocktails on the lanai, and telling stories and laughing into the night. Dad died almost 18 years ago, and Mom persevered on her own. She stayed active, she never felt sorry for herself, and she never complained. She lived with dementia for the last decade. Thanks to Lynn and Stu, she was able to stay in her beloved home until just 2 years ago when she moved into memory care at Carlisle House. Dementia removed her filter, but definitely didn't steal her personality. Mom never used many curse words when we were growing up. Every once in a while we'd hear damn or damn it. But in these last 2 years, we got to hear her swear like Satan. But only when she disagreed with us. Marilyn let us know in no uncertain terms when she thought something was bullshit. We were fortunate that she maintained her kind and pleasant demeanor 95% of the time. She smiled and happily chattered nonsense to everyone around her, endearing herself to the staff and caregivers. However, during that 5% of the time, she proved that she knew all the curse words. But to the very end, she refused to complain. She was tough and stubborn in the very best way. Marilyn outlived all of her family and most of her friends. And while dementia stole those final years from us, she had a great long life. But to use her words, I have to say that Alzheimer's is bullshit. Please celebrate the life she led and the love she shared with Dad. I'd like to close with a song from Carol King that to me has always perfectly captured their life together. Grab a tissue because it's a tearjerker.
You are a part of me, and the memory cuts like a knife. Didn't we find the ecstasy? Didn't we share the daylight? When you walked into my life, now and forever, I remember all the promises still unbroken. And think about all the words between us that never needed to be spoken. We had a moment, just one moment, that would last beyond a dream, beyond a lifetime. We are the lucky ones. Some people never get to do all we have to do. Now and forever, I will always think of you. Didn't we come together? Didn't we live together? Didn't we cry together? Didn't we play together? Didn't we love together? And together we lit up the world. I miss the tears, I miss the laughter, I miss the day we met and all that followed after. Sometimes I wish I could always be with you, the way we used to do. Oh, now and forever, I will always think of you. Now and forever, I will always be with you.
Pat, thank you. That was beautiful. You know, just a couple of days ago as we talked, she wasn't sure she was going to be able to pull that off, and you nailed it. Excellent job. And that's the kind of spirit I got to hear from the family when they were talking about the mom. You know, as we sit here today, each one of us in this room, we all represent two people. We are who we are as a human being, but we're also who we are as a human doing. And in our culture, we seem to put a lot more value to that, because if we were to meet for the first time over coffee, we'd probably ask each other in the first 60 seconds, what do you do? Or what did you do? And that says a lot about us. And as you were able to hear, if you're able to read through the obituary, Marilyn was an unbelievable human doing. She liked to be active as much as she possibly could. I read everything that she had accomplished, including her athletic ability, her career, the fact that she was still, they said that she broke her hip, she fell and recovered from that and kept, wanted to keep on moving. I'm like, if I'd have known, I would have had a pickleball partner. I don't know. But just amazing to hear all that she was able to accomplish in her life. But that doesn't even touch what Patty just told us and what many of you already know about the kind of human being she was. I was able to talk to John. I said, if you could kind of paint a picture for me. He said she was a tough woman. She was a good woman. And he wanted me to make sure that I shared what a great grandma she was. She liked to be around. She liked to watch the kids and be active in their life. They meant the world to her. Just a remarkable woman. When I heard that she lost her dad at such a young age, and that just put so many pieces together. What would she have been like? Would she have been much different? We'll never know. She made the adaptation she needed to be a strong lady her entire life. And they told me that they kind of have an inside thing as a family. Whenever they're up against a tough decision in their life, you want to be alert. That's what it became a verb at some point. And I know these last few years have been really, really hard. If you've ever been the caregiver or in the family and tried to love someone that has Alzheimer's or dementia, I'm not sure on this side of heaven there's anything tough, to be honest, because in many ways you have to say goodbye twice. And I didn't grow up in the church, but I was part of a youth group when I was in high school. And every other Wednesday, we would go up to the local nursing home, and we each had adopted grandparents that we visited. And my adopted grandma, her name was Charlotte, I'll never forget her. I knew her for 2 years. And back then, we didn't call it dementia or Alzheimer's so much, but all the symptoms were the same. I loved visiting Charlotte because you never knew what was going to come out of her mouth. She had been the Queen of England at one point. She had dated Elvis, according to her, been the First Lady. And then every Wednesday night when I was there at 6:30, the old television show MASH was on. Remember MASH? And this one character would come on the screen, played by McLean Stevenson. She would always tell me that was her nephew. I mean, you just never knew what was going to come. And I knew her for about 2 years. And I came in, her health was failing. I came in on one of those last nights, and I kid you not, I walked in her room. McLean Stevenson was sitting in her room because he really was her nephew. And I was like, well, what was Elvis like? Totally lost. And I tell that story. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert in that field, but I'm convinced that even though they can't get everything out, what you guys did in, there were times when the clouds parted, and she knew you were there. She heard. But the beautiful thing is that she lived her life in a way, and she had a belief system that she is in a place now where there are no memory issues. She's in a better place now where there's no COVID, there's no war, there's none of that stuff. She's in a place now where she gets to be restored to Junior. You know, Jesus one day was talking to a group of people who had just gone through a loss in John 14, and he said, "In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. But I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me." And I got to tell you, based on the story that I've heard and what I know of this great lady, if a lady like Marilyn is not in heaven right now, I'm in a heap of trouble. As I close today, I found a reading that I hope matches her energy, matches the way that she lived her life. It was given as part of a speech that Anna Quinlan gave to a group of college graduates one afternoon at Villanova University. And I do this as I close in honor of your mom and the way that she lived her life. Anna Quinlan said, "You walk out of here today with the one thing that no one else has. There will be hundreds of people out there with your same degree. There will be thousands of people that do what you do for a living. But you will be the only person alive who has sole custody of your life, your particular life, your entire life. Not just your life at a desk or on a bus or in a car or at a computer. Not just the life of your mind, but the life of your heart. Not just your bank account, but your soul. People these days don't talk about the soul very much anymore because it's much easier to write a resume than it is to craft a spirit. But a resume is a cold comfort on a winter night, or when you're sad or broke or lonely, or when you've gotten back the test results and they're not so good. So she said, here's my resume. I've tried to be a good mom. I've tried to never let my profession stand in the way of being a good mom. I no longer consider myself the center of the universe. I show up, I listen, and I try to laugh. I'm a good friend to my husband. I try to make my marriage vows mean what they say. I show up, I listen, and I try to laugh. I'm a good friend to my friends, and they are to me. Without them, there would be nothing to say to you today because I would simply be a cardboard cutout. So I call them on the phone when I can. I meet them for lunch. I show up, I listen, and I try to laugh. I would be rotten or at best mediocre at my work if those other things were not true, because you cannot really be first rate at your work if your work is all you are. So here's what I wanted to tell you today. Get a life. Get a real life. Not just a man pursuing the next promotion, or a bigger paycheck, or a bigger house. You think you care so very much about those things that you blew an aneurysm one afternoon or found a lump in your breast? Get a life in which you're not alone. Find people that you can love and people who will love you back. And remember that love is not leisure, it's really hard work. So pick up the phone, send an email, write a letter, kiss your mom, hug your dad. Get a life in which you're generous and realize that life is the best thing ever and we have no business taking it for granted. She said it's so easy to exist instead of live, and I learned this many years ago because something really bad happened to me, something that if I had my choice would have never happened at all, but it has taught me the greatest lesson of my life. I've learned to love the journey and not the destination. I learned that life is not a dress rehearsal. Today is the only guarantee that we really get. So I give everybody this advice. Consider the lilies of the field. Look at the fuzz on the back of a baby's ear. Read a book in the backyard with the sun shining in your face and learn to be happy. And think of life as a terminal illness, because if you do, you will live it with joy and passion as it ought to be lived. I think we just got to hear the story of a 94-year-old lady who got to live life on her terms the way that it ought to be lived. She's leaving her legacy alive and well in this family in the next 3 generations and the generations that aren't even born yet. And we all have the privilege now, because the beautiful thing that we all have, whenever I drive to a service like this, I pray in the car every time. And I realize that the beauty we all have time. We have people that are watching how we do life, watching how we make it to the good times and the hard times. And so the best thing we can do to celebrate Marilyn's life today is to take her spirit out of this room and let it live through the people that we love and the people that love us. I'm going to say a word of prayer. Thank you for letting me be part of your holy collision here today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Sam for our dismissal. Okay, let's pray. God, thank you so much for bringing us together today. Just what a beautiful privilege it is to come and be able to hear the story of someone who's lived through so much in this world, but did it well. And I pray, God, that just something that we heard today, something that we felt, something that we thought, would make her spirit walk out of this building and be able to be put in place in our own lives today. So thank you for the way that you made her. Thank you for how tough she was, how loving she was, how driven she was, all of it. And thank you for this beautiful family that gets to carry her legacy on. In your name we pray these things. Amen.
Thank you, Brian. This does conclude Marilyn's service here at the funeral home today, but I would like to invite everyone over to the other room right across from us here after we play this last song today, because we have a reception, so we have food, beverages. Please continue to stay and share your memories with the family. Again, thank you all for making the journey out here. We have one more song, and then we invite you to the reception. Thank you.
who dwell in the shelter of the Lord, who abide in his shadow for life. Say to the Lord, my refuge, my rock in whom I trust, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of God, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. The snare of the fowler will never catch you, and famine will bring you no fear. Under his wings your refuge, his faithfulness your shield. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and grow you in the palm of his hand. You need not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day. The thousands fall around you, it shall not come. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and grow you in the palm of his hand. For to his angels he's given a command, to guard you in all of your ways. Upon their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against the stone. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and grow you in the palm of his hand. And hold you in the palm of his hand.
That's it.
Thank you all. Family, if you'd like to go ahead and make your way over here to the other room. In a moment here. Take your time.
I'm gonna taste it.
Yeah.